Welcome to the Besties in the Books podcast, guys. I'm Liz.
And I'm Ashley. And today we are here to bring to you part 5 of our 6-part Hunger Game deep dive minisode series with the episode we've all been waiting for. The book release of the spring. Miss Suzanne Collins blessed us with Sunrise on the Reaping. Otherwise known as Haymitch's story, a prequel to Katniss's original trilogy of the Hunger Games. So this is our dystopian sci-fi series where we're focusing on Hunger Games. We brought you that first episode where we dove into all of why dystopia media in the media. Where does it come from? Where does it go? Cotton Eye Joe, you know? And it's led us to here. So we've done book 1, which is titled The Hunger Games. We've done book 2, Catching Fire. We've done book 3, The Mockingjay, followed by the prequel of Snow's Story, A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which I am finding out a lot of people skip out on. And let me answer that question real quick. Should you read Songbirds and Snakes before Sunrise on the Reaping? Yes. An emphatic yes. Please, just do it. It is not to try to trick you to like snow. I promise. That's what everybody's fearful of, which I get. But don't worry. So, Sunrise on the Reaping.
Trick you.
We're excited.
Oh, yep, that's right. We're going to do a deep dive on Sunrise on the Reaping. We've been waiting for this book to come out, arguably forever, right? Because it's like, if Suzanne Collins writes it, then we will read it. So here we are. But, you know, we're going to be wrapping up. It's so crazy that this is going to be our last episode about the books.
Yeah.
We're going to be wrapping up the series next week with our overall thoughts of the whole series and the movies. So we're going to be like ranking the movies. We're going to be ranking the books. We're going to be saying which one we liked better, which characters we liked better in which form, and just kind of like, you know, tying everything up as best as we can after finishing this series that's just super impactful in general.
Yeah.
I'm like, how do you wrap up a series like this, especially like in the current, like, I don't know, political climate? It's hard to do because it kind of haunts you, right?
Yeah.
But it's there. So just to give you guys a little tiny bit of context in case, you know, you're just hopping on this because maybe Sunrise on the Reaping is the one you're interested in and you've already, you know, read all the other books, whatever. You know, we really wanted to examine, as Ashley was saying, why, you know, dystopian themes are so popular in fiction and media in general. And then we really... I mean, I really wanted Ashley to read these. This was her first time reading these. Obviously, this was my first time reading this particular book as well. But the rest of the series was a reread for me, rewatch for me. So, you know, we wanted to examine these themes. We wanted to take a deep dive into, you know, something we think is really important right now. And then obviously we wanted to be able to read Sunrise on the Reaping alongside all of you so that we could talk about it. So,
and there's so much to talk about, guys. There's so much to talk about. If you ever finish a book and you're like, gosh, I wish I had somebody to, you know, hash this out with, come check us out. We probably have an episode covering whatever book you're finished.
And maybe even a Fable book club, too. Yeah. It's like, I was going to mention that. You know, all these books are up on our Fable. You can hop on whenever you want. We'll probably keep them up for quite a while. And that's over at Besties in the Book Club on the Fable app, if you guys haven't checked that out. And then just to give you guys a little bit of an idea of what we're going to do here today. Before we get into the deep dive, we are going to do like a quick, maybe 5-minute spoiler-free review section. So if you guys are kind of like, I don't know, should I bump this up to the top of my TBR? Can it, you know, wait for a while, whatever. Find out what we have to say as far as that goes. And then you could always save this to listen to or watch later. But before we get into any of that, we just wanted to say thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. Whether you have been a subscriber since the OG original conception of our podcast, which is it's about a year now. We just had our year anniversary. Crazy. Or you're jumping on for the first time. We would love to have you join our little bestie book club over here at Besties and the Books podcast. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe anywhere you like to listen to your favorite podcast, including YouTube. We're hanging out over there. It's not just a blank screen. It's literally us hanging out surrounded by all of our books and our favorite things. So it's just a vibe. It's just chill. You can also follow us over on TikTok and Instagram at Besties in the Books podcast as well. For this Sunrise on the Reaping, I did a bunch of live reading parties. So that was kind of fun. So if you found us through that, thank you for joining us today for our wrap-up video. Liz and I have a goal to be able to do like a live reading party together. Maybe the next big book that comes out. It'd be super fun, And at the end, we could do some spoilers, just give you guys a bunch of flashes, be careful. Spoilers coming. Yep.
Okay, so let's just kick this off with our spoiler-free one sentence star review, or we say one sentence. What that really means is just like short and concise as best as you can without including spoilers in it.
Yeah.
You want to go, or do you want me to go?
You go first.
Okay. Sunrise on the Reaping by Mrs. Suzanne Collins. 5 stars easily from me. I found this book to be just as entertaining as the other books. However, I found that compared to all the other ones, it probably was the most interesting as far as piecing all the pieces together.
Yeah.
And for that reason, it's definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Boom.
Yeah.
Zero
Without
spice,
getting into
obviously.
Zero spice, obviously. Yeah. Without getting into any spoilers or details.
Yeah.
That's the basis of my review.
Yeah. Our little quick review snippets at the beginning, we are just trying to kind of help guide you if you're on the fence about reading this, because come to find out there's a whole Hunger Games fandom that aren't reading these prequels. I get that it's hard because it's like, well, it's already done. Well, no, it's not. I'll eat it all. I'll eat it all up.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, I think we'll talk more about this maybe in the wrap-up episode, but I just wanted to mention it a little bit here because it was something, it's relevant to my review. Mm-hmm. I think that one of the things that Miss Collins is trying to really hammer home by releasing these prequels is that revolution, or whatever you want to call it, change, revolution, etc., can take a very long time.
Yeah.
And I think that what this is doing by going back to Snow, by going back to Haymitch, is it's really showing that it's like this 1.5 or 2 year span of time that happens during the Hunger Games was only able to happen because of this, let's say 75 to 100 years worth, if not more than that, of history that was building beforehand.
Totally.
That's why you need to read these prequels.
Yeah.
Hunger Games doesn't exist in a vacuum. There's so many other things that are important about it.
Totally. Perfectly said. Well done. So my review will be 5 stars. If you love that satisfying feeling of completing a puzzle, you're going to eat this up. Okay. If you're on the fence about it, everything Liz just said, it's just giving so much more context to everything that you know about the Hunger Games trilogy. Or if you've never read any of them, literally don't start at the prequels, start at the publishing dates of Hunger Games and just freaking get obsessed like I did at 36 years old for the first time. I'm obsessed. So that's basically my review, everything that we wanted and so much more, because Suzanne is so good at that. And I have so much more to say, but I'm going to leave it at that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just want to say one more thing before we get into spoilers too, is that someone one of our listeners had posted something on their stories to the degree of should I really read the Hunger Games? Are they a little bit too YA? Am I going to be bored? Is the writing style a little bit young? No, please just give them a chance. It's I think we've said it in previous episodes. Even if all you do is you just borrow that first book from the library or your friend and give the first 2 chapters a try.
Yeah.
Just do that. You know what I mean? I would probably think that majority of people would be sucked in enough just after that initial chapter or 2 to keep on going. So, I wouldn't be afraid of it because, trust me, I get afraid of YA series now.
Yeah.
Okay.
We get it, for sure.
Yeah. It's like after Shadow and Bone and after The Cruel Prince, it's like
Harry Potter.
Yeah, I am wary. You know what I mean? I'm very wary.
The water's tepid. I'm scared.
I'm scared. Yeah, so don't be scared, though.
Yeah.
I feel like the pacing, the writing, the character development, the world, everything is expertly done. Like, just take a chance on it. I think that you'll like it.
Yeah. And I feel like I've said this so many times before, and I'm going to go really into it in our wrap-up episode, but, like, I was one of you. Like, I only got a taste of the Hunger Games through one of the movies, and I was like, cringy love story. No thanks. Oh my gosh, was I wrong? And I am eating my words right here, right now. And I'm okay with that. I was wrong, and I'm so glad I was. How wrong I was.
The same thing happened to me originally when it came out, because I remember a lot of my friends were reading it, and I was like, no, like, I have no interest in reading that. Kind of same thing. I was like, that doesn't sound good to me. And then one of my friends just asked me to go see the first movie. And I was like, I don't have anything else to do. Sure, I'll go see the first movie. Literally watched that first movie, and I was like, what have I been doing? Like, literally, what have I been doing with my life? I borrowed the trilogy from her, and I think just read it all that weekend. And that's all that was out at that point. But yeah, it's like, I was the same way. I was skeptical, too. I don't know why. I don't know. Like, was the marketing for it not that good? I don't know what was going on back then, but...
We'll talk all about that in the movies episode, okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll zip it for now because we have more to digest with that too.
It's true.
But yeah, give it a chance. Let's go. Jump on this hype train. Toot toot. Let's go. Big-a-ling-a-ling-gong. Be gone. If you don't want spoilers, go on, get out of here. Save it to your playlist. Listen later because we're going to spoil everything for you. And it's such a treat to read this without spoilers. Okay?
Yeah. You do not want spoilers.
Yeah. Because like while we know some things, obviously. We don't know it all. You might think you're a know-it-all, but you ain't. You ain't know nothing. Okay?
So 5-sentence summary. Let's do it. For Sunrise on the Reaping. Ashley's got her keyboard. I've got my notes. Are we ready?
Now we are.
We're ready. Okay. Haymitch Abernathy of District 12 shares a birthday with Reaping Day, the 4th of July. This year is the 50th Hunger Games and a Quarter Quell in which each district will reap 4 tributes instead of 2. He and his girlfriend Lenore Dove, a descendant of the Covey, do not get initially picked for the games, but after a boy who does get picked tries to run, gets shot and killed, and Lenore tries to help his family, Haymitch jumps in and gets illegally volunteered by the game makers to take his place.
It's off to such a crazy start.
Yeah, exactly. I was really surprised by that. Okay, anyways, we'll keep going and we'll talk about that later.
Keep coming and they don't stop coming.
Yeah. Oh, Haymitch. Okay. After watching his friend Luella get killed by an accidental stampede during the opening Hunger Games ceremony and get replaced by a Capitol hijack doppelganger, Haymitch becomes part of an alliance called the Newcomers, which was put together in order to stand up against the careers who always win and to secretly, quote unquote, break the arena.
Ooh, 2.
Mm-hmm. Haymitch manages to blow a hole in the water tank of the arena with the undercover help of Plutarch and Beatty, who are both seemingly working undercover as rebels. It damages the arena, but doesn't kill it, so Haymitch is forced to watch his friends die, including Beatty's son, while he battles to the death to ultimately become the victor.
You're making me cry already, and it's only sentence 3. We gotta get darker over here.
Okay. Because of all the trouble he caused in the arena, President Snow has a vendetta against Haymitch, who comes home to District 12 only to find his mother and little brother burned to death in a house fire. He finds solace...
I'm sorry, I thought you were done. Go ahead. That was brutal enough. That was brutal enough. Stop it.
He finds solace in the fact that Lenore is still alive until he realizes the candy he bought her was swapped out with poison, and he watches her eat them and be poisoned to death before he can stop it.
Oh, this is so morbid.
So morbid. Which it's like we all knew it wasn't going to go well.
We didn't know the details, though. We didn't know how horrible.
Haymitch realizes the televised games were scrubbed of all of his and the others' acts of rebellion, and that he will never rest until he fulfills Lenore's request to never let another sunrise on Reaping Day. So he drives away all of his friends and family, including Katniss's parents, Burdock and Astrid, in order to keep them safe, and years later eventually ends up living out his days in the Victor's Village with Peeta, Katniss, and their children, where he tries to find some joy in life, but never falls in love again or fully recovers.
Why you gotta do that? Just relived it all in that 5-sentence summary.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was rough. It was a rough one.
What was I saying when we were watching the movies? They did it to me again.
Yeah.
That's what just happened.
As you reach for the tissues like every day.
Oh my god.
It's happening again. Yeah. This book, it's like, I think that's what makes it so unique. We know what happened before. We know what happened after. But being able to, like, it's like I was trying to explain that to my husband. Like, very rarely do we get them the insight into what happened in the middle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In the interim. Like, it was really unique in that way. And I appreciated the pieces being put together. It's like, we obviously knew it was going to end in tragedy. Like, there's no other way that Haymitch's story could have ended. Otherwise, he would have been a completely different character.
Yeah, and we knew like a teeny tiny bit of his arena time. His time is in his arena in the 50th Quarter Quell. Like, we knew he threw an axe into the barrier. We don't really know much else, though. And come to find out, that was deliberate. It's like all these years she's been holding on to that story. That's like, I love that in that she's been laying the groundwork. Hey,
Yeah, totally.
Hot take. This is why it is okay for books to take years in between the next one. Take your time, authors. Take your sweet old time. No matter how much we want it, it is okay to wait.
Yeah.
That's not a dig at anybody in particular.
And I've been seeing a lot of, yeah, right. No one in particular. I've been hearing a lot of things kind of like floating around of people are posting obviously about Sunrise on the Reaping since it just came out. And, something that's been kind of floating around a lot is this idea that, like, quote unquote, Suzanne Collins doesn't write anything unless she has something to say. And I hadn't really heard that before this, but it makes sense. It makes sense that I think that, this was deliberate. It was intentional. She starts the book off with a George Orwell quote. That's not a coincidence in any way, shape, or form. And so, I think that that's really interesting and telling that she's like, no, this is the right time. This is the right time to tell this story.
Yep.
And I think that it was perfect.
Yeah.
So, okay, why don't we just get into our favorite and least favorite parts of Sunrise on the Reaping?
Okay. Got my notes.
I'm curious.
I'm ready.
Okay. I'm curious to hear. What was your favorite part?
My favorite part of Sunrise on the Reaping was seeing the similarities between Haymitch and Katniss, especially in that final like self-sacrificing moment where he tried to blow up the arena and off himself at the same time. So it was his big final FU. Yeah. What about you? What was your favorite part?
I think my favorite part, I had so many. Honestly, it was really, really hard for me to like narrow it down. I think my favorite part was watching, with what we know of Snow from A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Yeah. It was watching all of these pieces fall into place to show why Snow is so crazy.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like, not to sympathize with him, because obviously at this point, he's gone full evil, right? Yeah. It's like, he's full evil. Like, we don't need to necessarily, like, empathize with his plot any longer if we don't want to. But I think that what is really interesting is, if every time you have an issue with District 12, you're seeing... Why am I constantly seeing Mockingjays? Why do I have to listen to this freaking song that my long-lost love wrote that now haunts me to the ends of time? Like, it's almost like I loved those parts because it was just showing, like, yeah, I think anyone might go insane if they had to deal with that for, like, their whole entire life until they were old and eventually got killed. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, it just shows that it's been... like the Mockingjay symbol has existed far before Katniss came along. And then it's like the hanging tree symbolism too in the song. It's like, obviously that came from Lucy Gray. And so it's like, how could that not slowly just drive someone to madness, like knowing all those things?
Yeah.
That he knows, you know. So those were the things that I liked the most, specifically the moments where you're like, oh, no wonder Snow's mad. Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah. Yeah, because in Hunger Games, it just feels like he has a weird vendetta, specifically. You know, it's like, huh?
Yeah.
What? And now we
like,
know.
Or he's mad just because he wants to, you know, squash any rebellion in general.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, he specifically has a vendetta against District 12 for these reasons.
Yeah.
And I feel like this book really explained that and like pieced it together really well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So what about your least favorite part?
Would probably be, I forget her name, but the last final tribute along with Haymitch. Do you remember her name?
It started with an M.
She's one of the she's one of the not capital. She's one of the careers, you know? Well, she
Oh, no. I know who you're talking about. It's a different person. Okay.
She cut off and is holding up Welly's head. So, lady, you've gone too far. Okay?
Yeah,
because I think what it symbolizes is like, ooh. And it's just it's one thing to have to be thrown into this arena and murder each other, but it's another thing to like go that hard.
Like make us skeptical of it on purpose.
Yeah, it was so brutal. And that was especially after he had dropped the chocolates down for her the night before. So it was so sad. It was so barbaric, you know?
It was very Lord of the Flies.
Yeah.
For sure. I agree. Like that part, like I remember reading the like she held up her head part and like literally out loud being like, oh no. Like out loud saying that. Like, whoa. Because I feel like as terrible as these books are, they're not really like explicitly graphic. Like we're not reading gory scenes. It's not about that. And so I feel like there was 2 instances. So that's interesting that you say that because that was one of the instances. And then my least favorite part was the other one that I'll talk about where I feel like it was a little bit on the gorier, more barbaric side.
Yeah.
And and I definitely like was appalled out loud.
Yeah, I had to like reread it. Like I went back the pages a couple times. Like, wait, am I reading the right book? What? Like, yeah. Because a lot of times they're just, you know, some of them want the glory and stuff. But yeah, it was just like, whoa, that lady, she lost it. She lost her mind.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what it seemed like. So then what was your least favorite scene other than that one?
It was... I'm horrible with names. I swear it's so bad.
There was 48 tributes. We'll give you a break here.
Well,
okay?
but he was a main character. So Beatty's son,
Ampert.
Mm-hmm. Ampert. Okay.
Yeah.
When he literally got eaten down to a skeleton.
Yeah. Like a fucking corn on the cob. Oh! Listen, we have to laugh or else we'll cry. It's horrible.
I was horrified. I was like, oh my God, because it just painted such a clear picture of what happened. Like he literally got eaten by these mutations, like till he was nothing but
to
bones.
The bone. Yeah. Oh, horrible.
Yeah, it was horrible.
And Beatty, you know how to sit there and watch it.
Yeah.
Oh my
and
gosh.
you know, it's like knowing what we know now also, it's just, those are the full circle moments that I really appreciate when it's like we know Beatty obviously from later on. And it's like all the things that he had to go through before that point. It's crazy to me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Good golly. We'll never recover.
So what about characters? Who's your like least and most
Dude,
favorite?
I wasn't expecting it, but I loved Maisley.
Yeah, she was a good character though.
Yeah, she was sassy, she's feisty, funny.
Yeah.
Held true to herself the entire time. I did like her, and I didn't see that coming when I first read it. And then, of course, like, I feel like I can say it, especially as someone who didn't particularly like Haymitch in the books. Obviously, full redemption arc for me. Completely find out the justification for him and his drinking and what happened to him. Love him. Poor dude. It's horrible. Yeah. It's like you wanna be like, oh well, you know, you shouldn't drink so much, but it's like, when you have seen what you saw and went through what you did, and everyone around you is dead because of you, essentially. It's because of the Capitol, so, it's misdirected, but still, of
Well,
course.
but I don't think it wasn't entirely misdirected. It's like he knew that if he got close to anyone, Snow would kill that person.
Yeah.
So he needed to be an insufferable,
Yep. Yeah.
terrible guy who kept everyone as far away from him as possible.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, my favorite character was Haymitch. I liked him in the original trilogy as well. So I was curious to see if this book would make me like him more or less, like how that would go,
Yeah.
And I feel like, I've always liked Haymitch, so I just really continued to like his character. I think we got to see the soft parts of him that are completely disappeared by the time we get to the trilogy, except for those little glimmers of, the moments that he has with Katniss, where you can see that they kind of have that bond, like that deeper bond.
Yeah.
And so I liked being able to learn more about, that part of his personality.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really enjoyed that Suzanne was able to capture his tone in this book.
Oh,
you don't feel
so
like
good.
you're reading Katniss's book with Haymitch's story. You feel like you're reading Haymitch's perspective. It's perfect.
Yeah. I completely agree. The tone was completely different.
You get the
Completely.
silly, like, sarcastic remarks, too. Like, so his personality is still in it, even though it's pre-horrific trauma. Like, you still see, him on both sides. Does that make sense? His personality comes through on both sides of the trauma. So that's something that she does so well. And I think it's why some people start Ballad of Songbirds and feel really icky and gross, because it has a totally different tone. It's the tone of Snow,
It is, but I think it's like, it's not told from his perspective necessarily all the time. I think that like that, because I was talking to someone about this and they said that they kind of struggled with it because, obviously Hunger Games is told through Katniss's perspective. Sunrise on the Reaping is told through Haymitch's perspective. But A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is not entirely told from Snow's perspective. It's more like they're just telling the story of what's happening. But I think that that's important because if it was told entirely from Snow's perspective, it would not be accurate. Because I don't think that he would be able to understand and be self-aware enough to be like, and today I fell a little bit more into madness. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't think that it would have come across the same way. So yeah, I feel like the tones for, like, let's just say the Hunger Games trilogy, let's call that one thing, right? For each of the three are so different that it doesn't feel like, oh, I'm just reading the same recycled thing over and over again, you know?
Totally.
So what about your least favorite character?
Obviously Snow. I mean, Drizella, or whatever, however you say her name, she's pretty awful too.
Yeah, she sucked.
Yeah.
I did not like her at all.
Ooh, I really
She's like
hated
mean Effie.
People are saying she makes Effie look like a lapdog or something, like a cute little bunny. It's true. And then that terrible, her husband that we find out they're married with the reptiles, like what a kook.
Magno or whatever his name is.
Yeah. Those are the ones that stuck out to me. What about you?
Literally same.
Yeah.
I think that if I had to pick someone who wasn't Snow, it would be, was it Drusilla? Was that her name? I think. Yeah, she, to me, I kept on wondering when Effie was going to come into the picture. You know what I mean? I was like, when is Effie going to show up? I'm really sick of this lady. She's like so terrible. And I know that she like had to be that way, for it to make sense. But at the same time, and for someone like Effie to stand out. Because, without, otherwise, Effie wouldn't stand out as being kind if everyone else was just, nice all the time, too. So I feel like it was a good, juxtaposition between those two characters, essentially in almost a very similar, if not the same role.
Yeah.
But, I really disliked her. But, obviously, Snow sucks, too. We're not supposed to like him. He's just worse and worse every time we learn more about it.
The way he planted those candies and then Haymitch feeds it to her. Horrible.
I literally didn't see that coming.
I did not. I knew he was gonna I figured hanging or something. Not that that's okay, but she surprised us. She did.
I
was like, oh no, that's horrible. So that's a horrible nightmare to have for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Like you put it,
completely
you grabbed
blindsided
it out
me.
of the bag and you did it, essentially. Mm-hmm. It's horrible.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I'm out. Snow.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you got to give it to him, though. The diabolical deaths thing, though, he's pretty good at it. He's pretty good at thinking it up.
Yeah.
Also, I do have to give a shout out to Plutarch as being neither my favorite character nor my least favorite character ever in any of the books. Because he's so important. And I think, I was reading a really good article. I'll share some snippets of it later when we start talking about quotes and whatnot. I think it was in like Elle magazine or somewhere random or whatever, but it was good, where they were talking about how this book is predominantly about propaganda and as one of the main dystopian themes. And I would agree, but I think that what's interesting is that arguably without the aid of someone like Plutarch, most of the stuff would not be able to effectively happen as well, for good or for bad.
Yeah.
And so I even commented in the Fable chat at one point, like, I can't really figure Plutarch out. Like, is he like part of the resistance and the rebellion? Is he not? Like, it kind of seems like he's wishy-washy, but not really, because usually he's on the right, quote unquote, side, and so I really appreciate his character for that reason, because I feel like at the end of the day, like, someone from our book club, I think it was Tara, had commented about how he's just a straight up sociopath, and that's why he's able to do his job so well. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense to me. It's like, at the end of the day, he's out for himself.
Yeah. And it's like fun for him,
Yes,
to like get away with this stuff. Because he does. He's the only one that isn't tortured and isn't, found out, and he's really good at that. He's really good at playing both sides. So he might just be that character that's like, I'm going to play both sides, and either way I win. By the way, I hate myself. So if the Capitol goes down, I'm fine. And if the rebels take over, I'm fine.
Yep, exactly. Like, no matter what, like, and I really appreciate that about his character, because even as a reader, we feel that way about him too, right? Yeah. Like, he just kind of goes with the flows, but at the same time is tremendously responsible for creating a public opinion throughout like the whole series, or at least as far back as the 50th Hunger Games. We're finding out. Yeah.
Crazy. So, and he's a Heavensbee, and I was trying to remember, and I forgot to look it up. Who's Heavensbee in Ballad of Songbirds?
I think he was just a student at the university.
So it's like his son. Okay.
Yeah, I can't remember his name. Hilarious, I think. He had like a weird name like that. I think it was like Hilarious Heavensbee or something. But I'm pretty sure he was just like a student at the academy too.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
All the connections.
Love it. Love it.
So I have two parts of this question. How did this book make you feel? But then also I was thinking about this. If this were to be the last Hunger Games, right? Miss Suzanne is done. She's like, I've said everything I need to say about this world. I'm done. Would you, like, how would you feel about that if you knew that there was, like, nothing more happening?
I mean, I feel like we always feel like that. There's nothing else coming down the pipeline. We would I wasn't reading them as they came out, but from what I understand, I believe Ballad of Songbirds came out in 2019, and that was 12 years after the last Hunger Games trilogy. Don't quote me on the dates, but there was a large gap in between, so people didn't even know.
Not that long.
No. Either way, how did it make me feel? So satisfied with those full circle moments. Like I said, it's like a puzzle piece, like finishing the last puzzle piece. Doom, boom. All the constant calculations I was having to do. I felt like that meme with the guy with all the numbers around him.
Yeah, totally.
That's how I felt almost the whole time. And obviously emotionally wrecked, of course. And then how do I feel if there wasn't more? While I would like more, of course, as long as it is with necessity, that I would like more. Does that make sense? I would never just want a filler. Like I said earlier, take your time as long as you need to. If you feel like you have more to say, we'll read it. But if not, I am satisfied. But I am a obsessed fan at this point, so I will read anything. What about you?
So first, I wanted to say, so Mockingjay was published in 2010.
Okay.
So
9
almost
years.
10 years between, let's say, the original trilogy.
Well, she
and
was
the first
quoted of
prequel.
saying that she's done. She's not doing Hunger Games anymore. And then...
Oh, see, I don't pay any attention to that stuff.
Well, I looked at it because it was like interesting state of the world that we're in when she drops both these two. So it was about 2019 when that one came out. And, well, look at what the state of the world in 2019. Who is in charge? And then, well, who's in charge here in 2025? So there we go.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
But not political at all.
Oh,
so
yeah, totally.
Yeah. I would say that this book in particular made me feel like a lot of the loose ends were tied up.
Yeah.
Not that the loose ends were bothering me before, but just like, whoa, like just like a mind-blowing, like, whoa, that's crazy. Whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like just kind of like putting all the pieces together, learning more. Like that's how this book made me feel, like just really good about it. Obviously it made me feel sad and I don't know, just as invested, if not more, in the characters because we now know a lot of their fate, right?
Yeah.
And so it's even more difficult to read about them, I think, knowing how things turn out. But yeah, it made me feel emotional in a good way and resolved in a lot of good ways.
Yeah.
And I feel like, if another thing in the Hunger Games franchise were to never come out again, and no more books and no more movies after this one comes out, I think I would feel content.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's contributed so much.
Yeah.
To popular culture and to literature and to dystopian fiction in general. I feel like I would feel good about that. But as you said, if she decides to start releasing one every few years, I also wouldn't be mad about it.
Yeah.
I feel like there's so many characters that whose stories could be told in a compelling way.
Mm-hmm. For sure. For sure. My gosh.
So, I mean, that leads us to the unanswered questions we want to know more about. Was there anything after you were done with this where you were like, dang, like, it would have been really cool if we would have found more out about X, Y, or Z, or if there was anything that just kind of is haunting you still?
No. No, I do already want to reread it again. And like, I want somebody to like make a family tree. That'd be really helpful.
Yeah.
A lineage, dates, how old everybody is. Cause I have a hard time with that. But
I was doing math constantly. Yeah. I was like, wait, okay. Yeah. Cause I have to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So otherwise nothing particularly for me unanswered. What about you? Anything that bothers you?
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I think that will haunt me is the fact that, Haymitch looks at Lucy Gray Baird's grave.
Yeah.
We don't know if that means they just gave her a grave and they never found her. We don't really know what that means. I'm assuming that means she just disappeared and no one ever knew what became of her.
Yeah.
I would also like to know how Lenore is related to Lucy Gray, if they are related.
Yes. Yeah. So I have some stuff in the Easter eggs to talk about with all of that for sure. Because, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Those are the unanswered questions that, like, those are the types of things that'll, like, keep me up at night. Like, as far as, like, I'll just, like, pop out of bed one morning in the morning and just be like, but what happened to Lucy Gray?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, those are the things that bug me. But, like, it doesn't make me dislike the book. It's just things I wish that we knew. But I understand that it's either intentional, because maybe we'll find out later, or maybe in the grand scheme of the story, it's not really important.
Yeah. Okay, well, with that said, I will ask you this.
Okay.
If she comes out with another book, do you have any predictions on whose story it will be?
Interesting. I mean, predictions on what would logically make sense, or whose story I would want to read?
Give us both. We got time.
I mean, I feel like from a logical perspective, it'd make more sense to tell the story of a character that we already know, right?
Yeah.
Like Finnick, or, Joanna Mason, or like those characters that we really, really grew to love and don't know much about their backstory.
Yeah.
If it were up to me, I would I would want to read Katniss's kid's story.
Oh, yeah. Interesting.
Because I would be curious to find out what happens.
Like how that society's operating, basically.
Yeah. How that society's operating. Are there pitfalls? Do they go back in any way, shape, or form? Probably. How does that play out? What do the people of that, generation know of the past? How do they handle it? Are they educated about it? Do they choose to try to ignore it? Like, how does media work in this new society? Like, those are the questions that I would have.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I have a prediction. Obviously, everybody wants Finnick's story. I feel like it's as brutal as it would be. I wouldn't be surprised if we got that. But I also feel like Effie's story would be a possibility.
Oh,
because
that'd be interesting too.
There's a lot of speculation going on right now in the book community that she actually is in the Price family, which if you know anything about the Price family from Ballad of Songbirds, it is a family that cannibalized their deceased maid and were ostracized, but still able to be within the society, right? Because their family was so hungry. I think it was the dad that, cooked her up and nobody knew. And then they found out after. And, so there's a bit of a scarlet letter on her. So she wasn't one of them that, had to eat it, but she'd be a descendant of them. And
we also know, because of this book, Sunrise on the Reaping, that she had rebel sympathizers in her family.
Yeah. Rebel sympathizers, but also the family had weird blood stains on their clothes. So I don't know. There's just so much speculation going on with that. I could be way off here.
Yeah.
But, and then she's also put in District 12, and she's still in District 12 when we see her with Katniss, and that's a, what's it called? It's a bit of a snub in that community to get that.
Totally.
So 25 years later, and she's still working. We don't know her. We don't know her story though. We don't know. Yeah. And then also, I want my unanswered question is still Tigress. Dang it!
That's true. I forgot about Tigress. Yeah,
we do see a snippet of her, I believe, but that was not enough. It was a crumb of her.
Yeah, it was like the lady in the audience with the cat ears or whatever. Yeah, was that Tigress or was it not? Yeah. We don't really know.
But I feel like that would be a good way. So that's also what I want. I just want Tigress's story, but if she was able to do Effie maybe working with her, with Tigress, somehow, and then the falling out. That's just what I want. But I think when it comes to circle back to, will she bring us another one? As long as there is a looming threat to a tyrannical government, Miss Suzanne will keep blessing us with these little drops of books, Yeah.
I mean, I think another interesting kind of thing to think about too is that we obviously understand at this point is that we're only seeing we're only seeing a small little portion of what's going on. We're seeing what obviously the author wants us to see, but we're seeing it, if through a specific character's eyes and perception. Then there's also the fact that media is being controlled. So we're those characters whose perspective we're seeing the story through are also only being exposed to a tiny bit of what's actually happening in reality, whether it's because they can't afford a TV or because Plutarch is literally creating a completely different narrative or because Snow is censoring media, whatever it is. So it's you have to think there's 12 districts and then the capital. It would almost be really interesting to get a partner novel of what is happening in other districts when the same events are happening in District 12.
Yeah.
Because for all we know, some crazy stuff is also happening there. Because as we've seen with these prequels, acts of rebellion have been happening forever since the war, since before the war. So what do we just not know?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's crazy.
So, do you have any notable quotes that you wanted to share with the group?
Yeah, I was reading live for most of them, so I didn't write any down except this one that I had a moment to jot down. A terrible dark grief begins to well up inside me, threatening to drown me, but I force it back down, swallow the same as, clamp a lid on it, dam it up. They will not use my tears for their entertainment. So That says so much in that quote, obviously. Disassociating, bottle it up for later, and then not using your tears, like not giving them the satisfaction. But there's this subset of people right now that are upset with Miss Suzanne and the way they felt like the deaths in this book were breezed over, and major moments like the water tank explosion. I personally, though, believe that that's completely intentional with her writing. I think of Finnick's death. How we, the reader, feel like, oh, what? But Katniss, she can't. She even says she doesn't have time to process that. She has to keep going. And I think that is constantly happening to Haymitch, you know? Where, like, in Katniss's first story, it's a little bit of a slower game. You know, she's dealing with the deaths as they come a little bit, where Haymitch had a target on his back from the get-go because of what was going on with Snow, and because of the chariot ride and him delivering Lulu's body. So he was never afforded the luxury of grieving any of these deaths, any of them, and it continues on. So I feel like you, the reader, feeling robbed of that grieving moment to, like, let me have a second here to cry about this. You're not supposed to, you're supposed to be mad about that. You know what I mean? Like, you're
totally.
in war, like, that's probably what happens. Like, you don't have a chance to mourn that death you just saw. You have to protect yourself. You got to move on to the next. So if you feel that, I feel like, congratulations, that was intentional. That's just my hot take, I guess. But
no, I would agree. I think that it, you know, like, she would use that, intentionally as a literary device. Like, I believe that to be true. I agree with you, for sure.
And it's horrible and it sucks, but it's just the way that they have to operate. What about you? Any notable quotes?
I just have to show this for anyone watching the YouTube video.
Anybody know? Tab.
So I have about a zillion quotes. I actually just posted all of my favorite quotes over on Instagram yesterday. But one that really, really stuck out to me, otherwise we'd be here literally all day. Okay. Okay, so let's see here.
Oh, it's the end of the book. You're going to make me cry again? Great.
Let's see. So he's talking to Plutarch, and I'll just start here so that it has some context. So Haymitch says, "Me, I say in disbelief, I am living proof that the capital always wins. I tried to keep that sun from rising on another reaping day. I tried to change things, and now everybody's dead. You don't want me, and I don't want him. I don't want help from anybody in the capital ever again. I could never trust them." And he responds with, "We do want you. You shook up the capital both figuratively and literally with that earthquake. You were capable of imagining a different future. And maybe it won't be realized today, maybe not in our lifetime. Maybe it will take generations. We're all part of a continuum. Does that make it pointless?"
That's beautiful.
Yeah. And I thought that, like, to tie it back into what I said before, was really driving that point home to me, that it's like, that's why this story, unlike a lot of other stories, is being told over the course of, we'll just say, almost 100 years, if you take into account the wartime and everything. Yeah. Because I think it's the author's way of really explaining that's like, these, what you might perceive, quote unquote, as a small act of rebellion or resistance, a drop in the bucket compared to what really needs to happen, because of the things that Haymitch did, because of, let's say, the things that Tigris did, because of the things that Plutarch did, even if he is a sociopath. Yeah. Like, it took, like, all of these people over the course of 100 years doing tiny little things, the Covey singing songs and keeping, art alive and, communicating messages through music, like, whatever you want to call that, like, that's the only reason why it was possible for Katniss to be able to eventually take down, put the final arrow in it, if you want to put it that way. You know what I mean? It's like, that's the only reason why she was able to stand there and do that. Yeah. Yeah. So it's not for nothing. Yeah. If you want to just go over any dystopian themes, and then we can get into the Easter eggs part. Yeah. There's a lot. You have, we talked about propaganda. You mentioned that. Off total control government. The eye is always watching. The symbolism of the eye shape in the arena was crazy. Technology. Very, Handmaid's Tale. Yep. And
Great Gatsby and 1984, like so many things.
Yeah.
Technology used for evil, all the tropes, all the dystopian tropes. What about you? Any other things you noticed?
Just about like dystopian themes. No, I feel like you pretty much like covered it. I feel like I would agree with the assessment that this was a good example of how, from Haymitch's perspective, and therefore from our perspective as the reader, we're reading this as like, wow, like there's all these acts of rebellion happening throughout the whole book. So many. Like, these kids are banding together to take out the careers. They're working with other people undercover to try to like explode the arena. Like, they're doing all of these things, and then it's completely erased. It's completely erased from public perception, from history, from, common knowledge altogether.
Yeah.
So then you have to grapple with the idea of like, well, then, and I think that's what Haymitch was saying in that quote that I shared. Was it for nothing then? Like, they still won. No one knows what I did.
Yeah.
Really. Like, no one knows what we did. But no, I would argue, no, it's not for nothing. But I feel like, the main dystopian theme from this, in my opinion, would definitely be the use of propaganda to alter history and public perception.
Yeah. I mean, we know from these little snippets that Beatty had some form of active rebellion because he's being punished with his son. So his games essentially were cut out too. That's my theory. Mags, something with Mags, she was being punished as well. And they were punishing Wyrus for outsmarting the arena, making them look stupid. So they punish all these people and all of these little acts of rebellion that we see, and multiple generations and time until Katniss comes along and is finally able to break it. And I think a big part of why Katniss was able to get through, they weren't able to censor her as easily. Her going in her sister's place, volunteering as tribute, was like a huge moment they couldn't censor out, and that got the Capitol people thinking too, so I don't know.
Well, I think like it goes all the way back to Snow disappearing 99% of footage of Lucy Gray winning the games. Right there, you know what I mean? It's like, that's huge right there, and that was mainly erased.
Crazy. So
crazy.
All right, I do have a surprise question, but we'll wait till after the Easter eggs because it's lighthearted and goofy and silly. So
okay, great. A good way to sign off on that.
We'll keep it depressing for a little while. No, not depressing, but like Easter eggs. Let's just bounce back and forth, I guess, on what we've noticed really quickly. Okay. We're not going to deep dive too far into here, guys, but just a couple mentions we wanted to say. Obviously, Lucy Gray Baird, I don't know how to say it, and her relations and her relatives. Was that her tombstone Haymitch read in the end? Was it because they discovered her body after Snow was shooting into the woods? Was it after she lived a long life in the cabin by herself? I don't think so. I was thinking, does she have a child in District 12? And I was thinking, I don't think that's possible. I don't think she could have possibly lived amongst District 12 people without Snow coming in and taking her out. He would have found out. He had eyes everywhere. He is totally. The all-seeing eye. So I think that is either her tombstone after they discovered her body, or she went missing.
Yeah.
Or she died more hidden. Maybe she stayed at the cabin for a little while. I
mean, my assumption, and this is not, who knows if it's right or not, my assumption would be that she ran away. Went somewhere where she found more members of the Covey and just kind of like, went off under the radar for the rest of her days, but that her family probably created that. I think it was her headstone. They created that headstone intentionally just to honor her, you know, assuming that, you know, like, we don't know what happened to her. Maybe she did die. People do that all the time. You know what I mean? Like, we have funerals for people who've gone missing all the time. So I think that's what I personally would think had happened, but there definitely is speculation that, God, I feel like I read it somewhere that Lucy Greybeard did come back to 12, and that she actually was Lenore's mother, but she died in childbirth because Lenore's mother died in childbirth. So yeah, there's all that speculation too. I don't necessarily believe that. I think it's probably more likely that she went off into the woods and then, you know, migrated somewhere else, and then they probably just put that there to honor her.
Yeah.
But I did like all the parallels with the Covey. I thought that was really, really good.
Yeah, having all those tie-ins was really cool, and that was like the math. Whoa. Yep.
Totally. I put the music. I love how the music ties all three parts of the series together.
Yeah.
You know, knowing, you know, after watching The Hunger Games, now knowing that Lucy Greybeard wrote The Hanging Tree, obviously about events we read about in A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. And then, you know, having those songs run through all of the books for 75 years of time, and you know that they existed even before that, is really fascinating to me.
Yeah.
So I really appreciated that.
Yeah. Okay, Katniss's parents and their budding relationship. Oh! Not only that, but Burdock, which is Haymitch's best friend, Katniss's dad.
Sad.
Imagine. So she loses his dad in the mine explosion, which now I'm speculating on, right? Because he is in the Covey. And he's a songbird. And he is the one that's teaching Katniss these songs and is a great singer. So he's like one of the last of the Covey, I think, in Katniss's time when she's there. Okay. So I personally think that maybe the mine explosion was that last dissolving.
Well, I think I commented something in the Fable chat about this. I didn't realize, like, obviously I knew that a lot of the Covey didn't have parents anymore, right? I figured they were, you know, murdered in some way, or died in the mines, or like died when they were rounding them all up to, you know, put them in District 12. I did not realize that it was a systematic extermination of the adult members. I did not realize that. And so I feel like that was a piece that I appreciated from this book, because it was getting rid of essentially all of the adults.
Yeah, which, as I was thinking about that coming off of Ballad of Songbirds, I was just like, well, what happened to that? Like, how did, you know, because we don't see them in the Hunger Games that we knew of, you know? Like, how do you take this band of people? Well, he slowly, one by one, tick, tick, tick. Oof. Crazy. So that would be horrible. So imagine, you lose your best friend that you had to push away because you didn't want him to die because of you. He dies anyways. And now he has this daughter, and then that daughter gets pulled in the reaping, and you have to mentor her and coach her and hope that she doesn't die also. It's just like ripping that Band-Aid and pouring the salt in the wound every time.
So much. I know.
Horrible.
Yeah, so the next one that I really found fascinating was the Mockingjay symbolism that just ran all the way through, with the flint striker, with the Mockingjay pin, you know, knowing where the Mockingjay pin came from. Yeah. That was pretty freaking cool, for sure. I really appreciated all of that symbolism, too.
Yeah. Seeing the moment the twin got pulled for the reaping, and then like having them rip them apart too. Like they mentioned something, seeing the twins get ripped apart, it was so crazy. And then she, right? So she has the twin that stays in the district, ends up getting these horrible headaches for the rest of her life, and we see that tie in the Mockingjay, or Catching Fire. Sorry, I believe it's Catching Fire, where she gives the morphling to Gale. Yeah. You know? So it's just like all those tie-ins coming through. Yeah. It's crazy.
I just put Mags and Wirus being Haymitch's mentors.
Yeah, that was crazy.
That was crazy. It was also really interesting to see how Mags ended up in a wheelchair and Wirus ended up with like severe mental trauma, we'll just call it, because we don't really know the extent of it, after this specific Hunger Games. So Wirus was not always like that. We don't really know too much about, you know, how bad Mags's injuries were, if they were sustained or whatnot. But that was an interesting tie-in too.
Yeah, it was, you know. Yeah, and of course we see Beatty and the fact that his son's, he has to mentor his son in the Hunger Games.
Yep.
That was personal. Okay. It's horrible. Yep. And then we talked about Tigress. We get a little crumb. We get a crumb of her in the audience with the cat ears. It's not. I said I was going to scream if we didn't get her story. Okay.
Yeah. And then that's all that I put. I put, you know, the tie-ins with Plutarch, the tie-ins with Effie, like basically just seeing like
all the other ones.
Where these characters came from, what they were doing in the meantime. Like I really appreciated all those tie-ins for sure.
It was great. It was beautifully done. It was a perfect tie-in book to everything. Yeah, wrapped it up in a horrific little bow. Filled with spiders. Okay.
So real quick before you share that, that article that I was telling you guys about that I had read in Elle magazine, there was a section in this article where they talked about the use of propaganda in this book specifically, and I thought that this summed it up really well because there's obviously, you know, Suzanne Collins is using songs. In this one, she's using you know, poetry to, I think just emphasize like that idea that, you know, Haymitch is slowly driving himself insane because of his lost love. Okay. So, the quote is, "But while propaganda is indeed a form of storytelling, there is a chasm of difference between twisting stories with malicious intent and preserving them for posterity. Collins' use of the Raven, in addition to numerous other songs and poems popular amongst the Covey, is a testament to that fact, that a poem from 1845 would exist in its entirety numerous centuries in the future, having survived the collapse of Northern American society and the building of a totalitarian government bent on killing children, is something of a wondrous idea to behold. It is also a nod to the strength and resilience of the Covey themselves, who have taken care to maintain these stories despite the capital's relentless and well-documented censorship." Oof. And so I really appreciated that idea too, because it really explained, I think, one of the big reasons why Suzanne Collins is using things like The Raven throughout, or like different songs throughout. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Ugh.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So anyways.
But hey, also, you know what? Hey.
What?
Took me too long to realize, okay? So the Covey was named, they would name their children originally after a color and, what was it? A bird?
A poem or a song.
A poem or a song. Okay, poem or song. And then I just find it interesting that Burdock named his children Katniss and Primrose. So I don't know what to do with that information, but something's there. Something feels there. I don't know.
Yeah, like both named after plants.
Yeah. So now I need to see a full list of everybody.
Well, maybe that was kind of like maybe that was the changing of generations. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
But it was blossoming, you know, something new, rebellion blossoming. I don't know.
I think it could be a good and bad symbolism. Like, obviously a good symbolism, like what you're saying, like something new is growing. But then I think it could also be a bad symbolism because of the fact that, like, the parts of the Covey that were specific to them were being systematically snuffed out over generations of time. Although I don't know how participatory in the Covey Burdock was, or if he was just kind of like a friend to them and like enjoyed singing, but wasn't necessarily part of their like nomadic life, or like a child of one of the Covey members. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know, but it's all speculation when it comes to that. But anyways,
pretty
last
interesting.
Final thing. Get my conspiracy board out. Let's go.
I know, right? Truly.
Surprise question to lighten the mood, to leave you guys on a high note.
Here we go.
Okay, going back to the arena. Okay, you're in the arena. What items would you try to snatch up from the cornucopia to help you in the arena?
Well, I don't know. I feel like Haymitch did this and Katniss did this. I feel like the smartest thing you can do is try to just run as fast as you can and grab the backpacks.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Yeah, because it seems like, they always have some vital things that you need in there. And then you're not mixing yourself up in the bloodbath kind of situation.
Yeah. And everybody loves a good mystery bag. So, hey.
Mystery bag?
I was like so happy for him when he got like all these good stuff. And as soon as he opened the black charcoal packs, I was like, oh no, everything's probably poison there.
Especially because everything looks so like idyllic. Yeah.
Well, I think I remember them mentioning something about that. So now I want to reread the whole entire series again, even though I just finished, because of more Easter eggs and finding more things. Someone had mentioned when they were explaining, I think to Katniss Katniss, either way, it might have been the first arena or the second arena she went into, that sometimes they're mentioning all the different types of arenas they have. Sometimes the arena is so beautiful and everything is so perfect, but everything's out to kill you and everything's poison. And it's like, that was Haymitch's arena.
Ah! Oh, so I do want to say one more thing that I didn't mention before. I really appreciated the repetitive use of Katniss. Like, just seeing it in this book, you know what I mean? Like, the actual plant itself. Like, that was really cool. I appreciated that. I can't remember. I'd have to look through all of my million tabs. But there was a point in time where someone described someone else as having pearly white bones. And that's exactly how Lucy Gray Baird describes, like, the only thing that still exists in my mother is her pearly white bones.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's interesting. And then obviously Haymitch's use of, the term sweetheart, like we found out where that came from.
Yeah.
I feel like I really just, I had to mention it.
Yeah, reading that, because he calls Luella sweetheart, right? He's like, she's sweetheart, but she's not sweetheart like my love is, his Lenora.
It's like a little sister
his
kind of
sweetheart,
relationship.
it's like, she was my first sweetheart. We have this kindred bond that is unspoken and understood. That is not in a love interest type of way. It's a different type of thing. So I thought that was really sweet.
Yeah.
It was a sweet moment, and then it all went downhill again. Cry everywhere.
Well, I think that about wraps it up. That's crazy. I cannot believe that this whole series is done already. That's crazy.
For now.
I'm going to miss it. I know, for now.
But we still got one more episode, so tune in next week, you guys, because we're doing our final wrap-up where we talk about our ranking, favorite to least favorite, books, movies, everything in between. We're going to talk about that, digest all of that. So make sure notifications are turned on and you are subscribed and following at Besties in the Books podcast anywhere you like to listen to your favorite podcasts, including YouTube. You can also check us out over on Instagram and TikTok at Besties in the Books podcast. But you guys, we'll see you next Tuesday. And one more Friday for this mini series. Okay? Bye.
Bye.